I just got to correct you there quickly in my first bit, which is I'm not British, I'm afraid. I'm half Danish. My mum's Danish. My dad's kind of Englishish, a bit Maori, and I was born in Singapore. Sorry. But I overcompensated, which meant, first part of the narrative, I'm an outsider. Okay. Right, so let's fast forward to when I'm 11 years old at primary school. I'm 11 and I'm 5'11", so I'm already pretty tall. And I'm rubbish at everything. Well, actually, not strictly everything. I'm just rubbish at football, but football at that time is everything, so pretty much rubbish everything. Now, I get to the end, I get to the beginning of the holiday, the last holiday, graduate, and then 6 weeks later, I arrive at secondary school, where I am a god. That's weird. I went from bottom dog to top dog, just because I was great at, I was good at rugby because I was enormous, I was good at basketball, I was the highest scorer because I was enormous, and people would queued up on my first day of school by my classroom to look at me, because I was so enormous. But I think what I got from that is, sometimes actually you don't need a big epiphany, you don't need to change, sometimes just the world changes around you or the context changes and things happen. I wasn't in control of those things. A few years later, probably 2-3 years later, age 14, I was orienteering. I loved, I played a little rugby and I had some successes there. I wanted to try new stuff. Honestly, I just like running around in woods. And so that's what I was doing. And I had a map in one hand and a compass in the other. And I could follow all the paths around. This isn't like a lovely, thick kind of wilderness wood. This is a suburban wood with kind of cans lying around and bags full of magazines, all kind of soggy and stuck together and stuff. But I didn't want to follow the path, so I just ran through the woods and cut my legs up and everything and got to the end of the race. I wasn't first, I was probably fourth or something. And I remember reflecting and thinking, I could have won that if I'd followed the paths. But I like running through woods. I like the bit in the middle. It's fun. But it wasn't satisfactory, obviously. So fast forward a few more years, and actually, obviously, the older you get, the more you get to change your context. You get to steer that stuff. So I'm, walk into an art school. Well, art school second year, finished a body of work. It's a room a bit like this, big, fat, white room, and you're getting to an age when you think, I have to kind of start making sense of your life. How am I going to do that? How am I going to discover, something important? And I'm not a scientist, so I can't do it in a reductive way. I can't go and do a load of experiments. I have to discover through creating stuff, like through creation. That's what artists do. That's what art is here for, is to discover things through making it, through imagining it. So I was sort of on a track now, like my sort of weird ducking into the woods thing was turning into something that was a bit more interesting. I go forward another sort of 10 years, probably, about 2001. My creative consultancy works a lot with telcos, worked a lot with Orange. And I just saw this whole industry on a track. One hand, miniaturization, phones are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And functionality getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I was just like, this isn't going to work, My fingers can barely hit the buttons, and I can't use any of the functions. Like, what is this all about? But of course, it was reality because it was what everybody was doing. But it was like, well, this is weird. So, I did what I did not as an artist. As a commercial person at this point. I just made a satirical object, which is you ever seen those big phones that plug into mobile phones? Big old retro phones that plug into mobile. Have you seen those things? Arno's got one on his profile image. Anyway, I just did it for fun, and I saw it and it amused me. But when I took it out into the street, everybody went crazy for it. Not just like one person, like everybody. And that doesn't happen with art generally. Like everybody was touched and moved by this thing, not because it was in a gallery, because it was in reality. And this all kind of culminated in me a double-page spread in the New York Times because it just grown and grown and grown, this phenomenon. So I kind of reluctantly had to take this on and turn it into a business. So I was kind of reluctant entrepreneur. I didn't really want to do it, but I had to. Anyway, cut a long story short, that didn't go exactly where you wanted it to go. Moving forward, though, and actually I'll just take a break from me for a second. It's a bit tiring. Hands up who doesn't admire Elon Musk? As I thought. Yeah, nobody's going to put their hand up. So I admire the man greatly, and in a funny sort of way, the evolution of the phone idea, which was a sort of throwaway thing, but it was very much like, everybody's doing something that doesn't make sense, let me do something else and kind of create some noise. But very much in parallel with Elon Musk's huge project with cars, I was doing something with lighting. And very much in the same way, at very much the same time. So in 2007, so this is 9 years ago, I'm not very good at maths, 9 years ago, at the Design Festival, which we're in at the moment, actually, so it's right to this day, we hung up what we described as the world's first designer low-energy light bulb. Because we were looking at this industry, this whole industry, just like I look at the mobile thing, I thought, like, we're all having to transition to efficient lighting, and nobody in the whole industry, I mean, what the industry was saying was, I'm going to try and do the voice of the lighting industry. People don't like low-energy lights, so we're going to pretend there's no change. The whole industry was doing that. And we thought, why don't we just make a cool one that people love, you know, that looks beautiful and that people might actually be inspired to buy, you know. So we did that, and that was the thing that I won a load of those awards for. And then more recently, well, very recently, which is this week, we launched a new bulb where, you know, again, back to those paths in that space and those opportunities in the woods rather than on these kind of paths well carved up and trodden by this boring industry. Nobody had asked the question, you know, of what is the most beautiful bulb we can make. Nobody had ever really asked that question. So we asked it, and we think we've created what we think is the most beautiful bulb ever. I'd love to hear what you think about it. You can see it, it's in wallpaper at the moment. And I think it manifests what, you know, those kind of early, like, discoveries about where maybe my passion and my capability lays. And I think it culminates in a little mantra I've been working on, which is, look where nobody looks to find what everyone sees. That's it.